You are standing in a tennis shop and do something most players consider a sign of real taste. You pick a Wilson racket, and then you pick Luxilon strings to go with it, feeling like you made two smart, independent choices. The problem is that both decisions are going to the same company, and that is just the first reveal on this list. By the end of this video, you will know that the official ball of Wimbledon is owned by a discount retail chain, that the brand serious players choose to avoid corporate fashion is 80% owned by a fashion house, and that the company behind the biggest innovation in racket history is now a licensed asset inside a portfolio that also includes Marilyn Monroe. Almost every major name in tennis gear answers to a company that has nothing to do with tennis. And then there is one brand that never sold. And this video ends there. Starting with Luxilon, because this one hits the players who pride themselves on doing their research. More than 60% of the ATP Top 100 use Luxilon strings. The Big Banger polyester string is genuine tour currency, and club players who string with it know they are running the same setup as the professionals they watch on television. Pairing Luxilon with a Wilson racket feels like two well-informed decisions made by someone who takes the sport seriously. Here is what most players are never told. Luxilon is part of the same Amer Sports portfolio that owns Wilson rackets, running the whole group alongside Arc'teryx, Salomon, and Atomic. Wilson became the exclusive worldwide distributor of Luxilon back in 2006. And that independent reputation stuck with buyers for years after the corporate reality had already changed. The most common smart upgrade move in recreational tennis turns out to be two purchases going to one company. That connection was never advertised, and Luxilon still markets itself as though the independence is real. Head does not own a string brand, but they do own something every club player handles before they even think about their racket. Penn is the #1 selling tennis ball in America, and almost nobody actively chooses it. It is simply the ball that is always there on the shelf at every sporting goods store, picked up on autopilot because you need balls, and Penn is what is in front of you. Penn Racket Sports is a subsidiary of Head, the same parent company that makes Djokovic's racket, which means the premium tour racket brand and the everyday ball that nobody thinks about share one owner. The next time someone says they play with Head rackets and Penn balls, the honest answer is yes, from the same company both times. If knowing who actually owns what goes in your bag sounds like information worth having, subscribe before the next brand, because the ownership story still ahead is the one that stings the most. Tecnifibre is Medvedev's racket brand, the official Roland Garros string supplier since 1987, and a French company with a reputation built on the feeling that the people behind the product care about tennis more than they care about marketing. Players who choose Tecnifibre have looked at the endorsement-driven world of tennis gear and gone a different direction on purpose. Lacoste Holding acquired 80% of Tecnifibre's parent company in 2017, and Tecnifibre now sits inside the same brand group as Lacoste and Gant. The brand that players choose to escape the fashion-driven side of tennis is controlled by a fashion company. String production is still carried out in France, and the Medvedev association was genuinely earned. And none of that changed after the acquisition, but the independent specialist identity that drives most Tecnifibre purchases has not matched the actual corporate structure for nearly a decade. The most anti-fashion choice a player can make in a tennis shop turns out to be a product owned by a fashion brand. A polo shirt company owns the French technical specialist, and a British discount retailer owns something far older than that. Slazenger has been the official ball of Wimbledon since 1902, which means 122 consecutive years as the ball of the most prestigious tennis tournament in the world. Slazenger is owned by Frasers Group, the British retail conglomerate most people know as Sports Direct. Frasers acquired the brand as part of the Dunlop Slazenger portfolio in 2004, and then between 2016 and 2017 sold the Dunlop Sport brand separately to Sumitomo Rubber Industries in Japan while keeping Slazenger. Two of the most historic names in British tennis, which had been under the same roof for decades, were split apart and handed to owners on completely different continents. Dunlop is now inside a Japanese tire and rubber company, and Slazenger is a brand division of a discount retailer that sells budget boxing gloves and discounted tracksuits in the same stores. The ball that has been used at Wimbledon since 1902 belongs to that retail group, and no announcement was ever made about the moment that became true. Most players serving with a Slazenger ball at Wimbledon have no idea who signs off on its production. Prince genuinely changed how the game is played. In 1976, an engineer named Howard Head applied a physics principle called the polar moment of inertia to racket design, reasoning that a small increase in the frame's width would produce a large increase in the sweet spot. The result was the Prince Classic, an oversized aluminum frame that purists initially called a snowshoe. Within 4 years, 700,000 players were using it. The oversized racket did not just sell well, it changed what recreational players could physically do with a frame, and every manufacturer in the sport eventually followed. The O3 string hole system, the Techstream construction, and the Phantom line all came from a company with that same single sport engineering obsession at its core. John Isner used Prince frames deep into a professional career built on one of the biggest serves the sport has seen. After passing through Benetton Group, Lincolnshire Management, and Nautic Partners across successive private equity deals, Prince filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2012. Authentic Brands Group, a brand licensing company whose portfolio includes the Marilyn Monroe estate, acquired the Prince name out of that bankruptcy and set up 3 regional operating partners to run the brand globally. Prince rackets still exist, and the Phantom line still earns genuine praise from independent reviewers. But the engineering culture that produced those breakthroughs, the people, the decisions, the obsession with a single sport, no longer exists in the form it once did. What you are buying today is a licensed version of a name that used to belong to something else entirely. The name on the frame is the same, the company behind it is not. 5 brands, 5 reveals, and now the one that looked at all of this and never went down that road. Babolat was founded in Lyon, France in 1875. Is run today by Eric Babolat, the great-great-grandson of the founder, and has never been acquired, taken private, or absorbed into a larger group. No conglomerate, no fashion house, no private equity firm, no brand licensing company has ever owned it. When Eric's father Pierre died in 1998, Eric took over the business at 28 years old and kept it in the family. String production remains in France, and every decision about what goes into a Babolat product is made by people whose only industry is tennis. That is a structural fact that separates them from every other brand on this list, and it is not something that shows up on the hang tag. Nadal began his relationship with Babolat at age 9, and Alcaraz and Holger Rune are with the brand today. The Pure Drive and Pure Arrow are among the most widely used recreational rackets in the world, and the brand carries genuine presence at Roland Garros and Wimbledon. Independence does not mean cheap, because the Pure Arrow is a premium product at a premium price. But the people deciding what goes into a Babolat racket have no other industry to answer to and no unrelated revenue targets to protect. Wilson owns your racket and your strings. Head owns your tour frame and the ball you never thought to question. Lacoste owns the brand you chose to escape fashion marketing. Fraser's Group owns the ball that has been at Wimbledon for over a century. And one French family still owns the only brand on this list that was never sold. Knowing who owns what does not mean the gear is bad. But ownership tells you whose priorities drive the product. Most players never think to look any of this up. Now you have.